Welcome back and welcome to the Urban Debate at 9 p.m. now. Like I promised you last week, we continue to put the spotlight on the economy and continue with our conversations on India Revival Mission. Viewers, after 6 weeks of lockdown, we've now entered lockdown 3.0 with a lot more relaxation and relief coming in for the industry to at least restart some amount of economic activity in the orange zones, in the green zones, and also in the red zones. The government has given the space for some business to restart. Of course, it's just day one. There are lots of hiccups and challenges, and it will be some time before we actually see the business and economic activity pick up. But what should be the way forward? And let's focus on some of the sectors that have been badly hit and are in need of dire help of the government at this point of time if we are hoping for some kind of revival. So tonight, I'm going to put the spotlight on real estate as well as the hospitality industry. And I've got a power-packed panel joining us right now. Mr. Baban Irani, MD and CEO of the Rustomjee Group, is with us this evening. Rattan Keswani, Deputy Managing Director of Lemon Tree Hotels. And I've also got Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, National President for NAREDCO, and of course, Senior VP for ASSOCHAM. Mr. Hiranandani, let's begin with you. We've had a few conversations, in the earlier avatar of lockdown where absolutely nothing was allowed. But things have changed now. What's your own sense? Where do we go from here on in the coming weeks?
I think, first of all, we have to congratulate the government that the lockdown was really, really good. And it has served its purpose. Now, the question of Jahan was taken care of, but now Jahan is required. I think the economic ideas must come back, and the onerous thought process of only looking after lives and locking down the entire economy is a dangerous thing which is happening. So we have suggested very, very strongly the opening up, including real estate in a much bigger sort of way. A partial opening up has taken place wherein the people, the workers in C2 are required, can be brought down to work subject to some of the local conditions which have actually not permitted this to happen in some of the states. But by and large, we are happy that the work is started. However, we do feel it's a little too slow. The opening up needs to be a little faster. We know that it could have a deleterious effect. But I think the economic consequences, and you see this worker migration which is taking place, it's really something which is can be done at maybe 20% of the level it is today. I think if we open up the economy faster, this problem of migrant laborers going back in the manner in which they are hungry, I think that would stop. We want to put them back to work. There is a good possibility to do both in the case of industry and construction. And we strongly recommend that it should be done at a faster pace than it is being done. Number two, we need to see that the economic stimulus must come on faster. The Niti Aayog has recommended 10 lakh crores on the basis of 5% of GDP. We at ASSOCHAM have recommended as President ASSOCHAM, I have recommended 14 lakh crores. Of course, there is a hiatus difference, but the government has only done 70,000 crores. So I think there's a huge difference between what is being suggested and what is being done, which is extremely wrong because it means that the stimulus required for industry to come back, employment to take place, and the poor people to be fed is just not happening. So I think, or it's not happening enough. I would not say it's not happening. That would be unfair to the government because they are doing a lot, but they're not doing. But I must compliment the health side is definitely a positive story and India can be proud of it. But too much lockdown is dangerous.
But I actually want to pick up on one point that you made, and I was going to ask about that specifically, Dr. Hiranandani. The fact about the exodus of migrants that we are witnessing right now being facilitated by the state and the central government. Is there a view that the government needs to move quicker on reopening some of the big cities? For example, the Delhi Chief Minister has already said we are ready to emerge from the lockdown. Let's do so now. Because once these people have gone back to their home states, then even if we want to restart the economic activity, it's going to be difficult. Where are you going to get the hands? Where will you get the daily wage worker or the laborer?
You've hit the nail on the head. This is exactly what is needed to be done, and it has to be done prompto. Fortunately, Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai has started all the infrastructure projects, which is the roads, the Cross Harbour Bridge, the coastal road, the metro, and other works are already started. However, the private sector, they are a little slow, and I think it should be done very quickly. Similarly, I think all the states need to open up the factories as well as partial opening of IT offices. A lot of people internationally are not happy of the fact that IT is not being restored in our country. And I think that requires, of course, with safe distancing and all the other things to be done. I've been talking to two of the IT majors, and they are a little worried that India is being over locked down at this point of time. And of course, they will take care of, say, distancing, physical distancing, and all the other things that are required to be done. But it needs to be done very quickly. So we are of the opinion that the wonderful thing on the health front, but on the economic front, we didn't think that so much migration would have taken place if the opening up was faster. These workers would have been better taken care of on our sites, better taken care of on our factories. I think a combination of these two needs to be done it. And I think what the Delhi Chief Minister has said is correct. The opening up needs to be done quickly now.
Okay, let me also, in this conversation bring in Boman Irani. Mr. Irani, that's the point, right? While we do talk a lot about ensuring that these migrants are able to go back home, they get food, shelter, get to be with their family. Fact of the matter is that if we restart our economic activity right now, there will be a reason for them to stay back. They want to go because there is no work here today. So perhaps it's imperative that we push to restart the economic activity in cities, even in red zones, sooner than later.
So, first of all, Tanvi, thank you very much. My point is quite simple. We have to be reasonable in our overall approach. Like Niranjan Bhai mentioned, that the government has done a fantastic job on the Jahan part. Now we've got to really wake up and start taking care of the Jahan part. Otherwise, we will all be left, licking our fingers to try and kind of keep our stomachs full, which never really happens. On the labor front, look, human behavior is always a flight to safety. And I think when people get affected or when they are scared the way they are right now, you must appreciate that with us not knowing as much, imagine what kind of information must be flowing down to the people at the ground level. They're extremely scared. We've heard of, various incidents take place across various parts of the city. And any kind of information sparks out that fear or the flight to safety for them. I have a feeling these workers, large part of them will go back home, but they will come back. They should come back because livelihood is as essential to them. I think, this is also the month in which people used to start going back because they want to sow their crops in their own fields. And they will start coming back around end of July. Maybe this time they will come back a little later around August. But the fact that our industry, real estate, is going to be badly affected by the migration, the larger migration of labor this time is a given. It's a reality. But I think we'll have to just take it along with a lot of other things that our industry is going through. This is a time when we will see a lot more happening with us. But I'm happy to say that the entire real estate industry and all the developers have come together and are taking care of all these laborers on the site. And when I say taking care, means not only of their food requirements, but also of their medical requirements, also of their social requirements in terms of there is TVs being put up everywhere. And these people are being given, some kind of an activity or the other. We're also working with the municipal corporation, and I'm very happy to say that a lot of developers have given their labor to the municipal corporation, especially in Mumbai, to carry out all the essential pre-monsoon activity. I think coming together and talking with the government and putting across the views which we have being on the ground is something very essential. The government has been listening. Of course, they've got their own compulsions and life above everything else is what I think the government really needs to focus on and has focused on. I would just say that it is time now to really kickstart and allow the development to take place in full force. And over here, I just want to add that even today, the municipal commissioner very clearly defined that there is everyone who has an approval can start off the work. There is no separate approvals that are required at this moment. And I think this kind of information needs to go all the way down to every developer. And whatever we can do to assist the government, Niranjan Bhai touched upon this. We as industry leaders are in a position to take care of as much, if not more, the safety of the people. We understand social distancing. If a BMC can, get its workers to understand social distancing, we, I assure you, can do it much better because we are siloed, we are smaller units, and we have better or rather continuous communication taking place. I think it is time for the real estate industry, and I believe it's time for all industries to be restarted, where we will follow the new normal and take care of the people.
Okay, Mr. Keswani, outside of the real estate basics, hospitality is a completely different animal and perhaps the worst hit apart from aviation when it comes to this pandemic. What's the way forward and what help would you expect from the government?
Well, I would like to echo the sentiments of the two co-panelists. I think so far the government's done an outstanding job. They've been able to take care of the healthcare to a large extent and also take care of the underprivileged. But my fear where our business and aviation is concerned is that one, it is a fairly fragmented business between branded and unbranded and owned hotels. And the longer the government does not, they don't take decisions on any of the benefits that they should have announced by now, we're only going to increase the population of young, educated people who will go into the unemployment lines very, very quickly, because it is not sustainable beyond the month and a half that we have. And the longer it takes to revive the industry, I fear that a lot of young, educated people will not have jobs because the owners and the operators will not have the wherewithal to look after them. Two, I think industry needs to come back. Hospitality and particularly Lemon Tree have shown that we are able to handle this kind of an emergency, and we've all geared up in all our social distancing, because for us engagement in the right manner is very, very important for the guest comfort. And we're all geared up to welcome the guests back and to get our employees back and kickstart the engine of hospitality. And I hope aviation does too, because there is a limit to the shutdown that we have seen so far. But we can't wait longer anymore.
So how is the industry? Correct.
So
correct. Mr. Keswani, that's what my question was going to be. How is the industry handling it right now? Because one would have expected the government to come out with some kind of a support by now, which hasn't happened. And almost every business, irrespective of the industry, needs some amount of cash to continue some of its basic requirements, which is becoming difficult. If you can give us an insight into that for hospitality.
Yeah, so that's what I said. Fortunately, hospitality did well till the end of the financial year. So I think everybody had funds to be able to handle their business for a month and probably another month. But we're a highly capital intensive industry. A lot of our costs are fixed costs where we've got no benefits, nothing at all from the government. Because we're a highly capital intensive and a highly taxed industry, unless and until that support comes and there is no revenue to be made, we are literally going to be going onto a ventilator that's going to get switched off very quickly. Most countries announce their benefits industry by industry, understanding the importance of the industry, the number of people employed in that industry, and therefore were able to quickly set apart certain benefits industry-wide. So far, unfortunately, where hospitality is concerned, we haven't seen anything that is able to even hold our finger and take us 2 steps ahead. It's been very disappointing. Hello?
Okay, I take your point. I know what you're saying. In fact, Mr. Hiranandani, do you want to come in on that? On what is it? Let's get specific now in terms of help and support needed from the government to ensure that more and more businesses don't shut down, or that we don't have a job loss or a jobs crisis right now at hand.
There are three things really they have to do. The first and foremost thing that they have to see that the economy is opened up, wherein they give what is they have committed as a stimulus package. Forget the stimulus package. Even the money they owe, they are not paying. They're not paying income tax refunds. They're not paying VAT refunds. They're not paying GST refunds. They're not paying NHAI dues. They're not paying DISCOM payments. They're not doing fertilizer subsidies. They're not paying state government payments. All these payments, if they do, that itself will be a first kickstart of the economy. The second, the Reserve Bank of India needs to start giving money to industry and business. Just now, the reverse is happening. They have created credit availability in the banking sector, almost 7 lakh crores. 7 lakhs crores, instead of being given to industry, business, real estate, automobiles, hotels, anything, it is actually being parked back again in the Reserve Bank of India at 4% interest. So instead of giving it to business and industry and whatever, TV or any other newspaper people, they are giving it backwards. So we need that to be done very, very quickly. And the third thing that we really need to do is to kickstart the economy. You need to cut in GST, not only for real estate, but across the board, including hotels. So you need a 50% GST cut for the next 6 months in order to do that. If you take these packages together, they're not a lot of money. They're half of what they are suggesting. So we are only suggesting that you need to kickstart the economy, open up real estate, open up the other thing, of course, with safeguards. I'm not saying no safeguards have to be done. Yes, you must have safeguards. You must have more safeguards. Nothing wrong with that. But please don't put, I think they're not able to understand that the not opening up of the economy is going to cause more people to die of starvation than the coronavirus. So if you ultimately look at it, at the end of the year, you'll have more poverty and starvation in India because the economy is in destruct mode. So we need to open it up as quickly, and a stimulus package also needs to be done.
Okay. The other aspect, of course, Mr. Irani, is the, especially in real estate or even in hospitality, is the consumer sentiment. At a time when most economic activities come to a halt for 6 weeks, which is unprecedented, and we will reel under that effect for the rest of the year, where businesses are struggling to survive, the consumer sentiment gets further hit. Now, how do we look at reviving that? You need to get people back into looking at buying houses or investing in property or even traveling.
Right. Let me start by saying what Mr. Harish Salve mentioned at another webinar where I think Niranjan bhai, you were also one of the moderators. He said it is time for us to come together and believe in each other, have a little more faith. I guess he was pointing towards the government. If you have to give with the intention of seeing that the full benefit is passed on, rather than trying to figure out that the industry may want to pull a lot more than they would be due. I think this is the time for the government to actually take support of or believe in the utpadak, that is us, and give us the right kind of support. So when they mentioned that all workers should be paid, very good move. But when you say all workers should be paid, there should have immediately been a backup in a day or two where they would have said all industrialists will get taken care of. I don't want to say that none of them have said it, but I think it's been long enough now, and we should have heard of larger packages coming our way, or at least a framework in terms of where they would have put things into perspective for, let's say, people like us who are let's say the revenue generators and the employers, the largest after agriculture employers, the real estate industry. I want to say that I think Niranjan bhai put it quite well. You need to have the banks, show a little bit more faith in the economy, and the RBI needs to push for that. I also think that by putting money into the hands of the people, you will be doing the right thing to make people want to go out there and buy. We've already seen the Chinese economy, I'm just quoting what I have read, has bounced back hugely. There is a vengeance buying. There are only two ways people behave in a situation like this. One is they go into a shell and say we're not coming out, but that is not the human behavior that we see. So I think there will be a lot more of enthusiasm for people to come out there and live their lives. But yes, it's got to be backed by a lot of support and stimulus, which means money in their hands. As an industry, CREDAI has put forth a few demands, or what we believe is the essential ask of the government. One of them, I think, Niranjan bhai, you touched upon, but I think the way we need to spur the real estate industry is actually to first drop the interest rates to the home buyers. And I say a drop in interest rates as much as, or as little as, or as much as 5% is what we should be charging our, on the home loan rates. This will make it a golden opportunity for people to come and buy homes. The second thing that we really need to do along with that is give a one-time income tax benefit. And mind you, this is around the world. When you buy a home, you are able to kind of get a set off on your income tax of the interest amounts that you've paid, or even of the capital asset that you've acquired. I think it's very important at this point of time, knowing the kind of revenue generation and the multiplier effect the real estate industry has, to go ahead and give it a one-time income tax benefit in the hands. Today we have a ceiling on it, which means that we are talking about homes which are, in tier 2, 3, 4 towns. But you have to understand the cities are the main, they may not be the volume drivers, but value driven growth comes from the cities itself. You need to give a higher income tax benefit. I would say cut out the cap on the income tax benefit that is being given, and give it for a period of 2 years. Let people actually go out there and make a decision to buy. It's also very important at this moment in time, more than ever before, to understand that the income, the GST which is being charged to this industry is fairly high, and we do not get an input tax credit. It would be our request that the government reduces the GST to about 12% chargeable to this industry. At the same point of time, does go ahead and give us the benefit of the ITC or the income tax or the pass through that we should be getting. Having said that, there are 3 or 4 very small things that the government
Points
needs to do.
taken.
And I could appeal to the state government as well.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead, finish that point, please. Finish the
very
point you
actively
make.
and very quickly reduce the premiums that are charged. Yes, so the state government needs to go ahead and reduce the premiums that are being charged to the real estate industry, because we all have affordable housing at our heart. But if we take a look at the price of the home purchaser pays for a home in Mumbai, anywhere between 36 and 42 rupees are going straight into, out of every 100 are going into the hands or into the coffers of the government or the ULB. We really need to rationalize this. We really need to bring it down, and we really need to make homes affordable in the city of Mumbai. We are fortunate. Demands are still there. People still want to buy homes, and I think, someone put it very well. We live on earth, and are we really worried about the real estate industry? No, but we want to see that the government comes across and gives, if not directly to us, at least to the hands of our customers, the money that is required and the income tax benefits thereof. I'm done.
Okay, point well taken. Thank you so much, Mr. Hiranandani, Mr. Irani, and Mr. Rattan Keswani for joining us right now. I do believe, and I agree with you, that the time has now come for the government to come out with a series of steps, not just for these two sectors, but across the board. Right now, businesses need a little bit of help. Businesses need a little bit of support, even though some amount of relaxation has been announced in terms of restarting economic activity. We are far, far away from when we actually see India's growth engines pick up pace again. And that is the need of the hour. It's also imperative that the minute we start pushing for restarting businesses in the big cities and metros, that's when you will also see the exodus of the migrants come down automatically. And then the concern of taking them and ferrying them all the way to the other corner of the country, paying for that, or even bringing them back will go away. Give them a reason to stay back, a source of livelihood, and they will continue to do so. That's exactly why they came to these states in the first place. Out of time on this conversation, but on the other side, we will take off from this point and talk about a larger issue. Delhi Chief Minister says we are ready to emerge from the lockdown. Time to put the spotlight on business and economy. Should that be done for the big metro cities? That debate on the other side. Stay with me. Welcome back. The big conversation, like I promised you before going into the break, should the big cities be reopened further for business and economic activity? Is 6 weeks of lockdown enough? Are we ready to now move forward with a different kind of strategy? And I say this, viewers, because at this point of time, the entire country is reeling under a huge amount of economic and business pressure. I also say this because the Delhi Chief Minister ignited this debate when he came out yesterday and held a news briefing, and he said that Delhi is ready to emerge from the lockdown. We have used this time to build our healthcare infrastructure. We have contained the infection, but lockdown is not meant for infection to go away. It is meant to contain it and give us time to prepare. Now that that has happened, let us now restart the economy. Here are some interesting facts that I also want to cite as we go into this conversation. Yes, if you see the map of India and you look at the orange zones and the green zones that have a lot more freedom in terms of business and normal day activities, 42% of India is in a green zone right now. But if you look at where is the heart of our economic engine, this green zone barely matters. These are not the areas which are metropolitan cities. These are not the areas which have a higher contribution to the GDP or a financial weightage as it's called. These areas actually only represent 1/5 of the GDP despite being 42% in its size terms. They represent about 10% of India's deposits and just about 6% of loans. These are some numbers, some very basic numbers that I'm putting out there. In fact, 90% of our population is largely in the red zones, which means that it is important to not have a blanket rule perhaps for a red zone, but to come with a micro strategy for the containment zones and allow business to restart elsewhere. That's the thought I'm putting out there for our experts to respond to. Let's see where this conversation goes. Let's say good evening to a panelist who are joining us right now. Dr. Ajay Kumar, spokesperson for the Aam Aadmi Party. Shazia Almi, national spokesperson for the BJP. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, chairman for Nephron Clinics, joins us this evening. Dr. Vikas Maurya, director and head of department for pulmonology and sleep disorders at Fortis Hospital. In fact, let me first begin with Dr. Bagai. We had a short, brief conversation yesterday on the phone, Dr. Bagai, but you do believe that it is time to change the strategy to a more micro containment than a macro policy.
थोड़ा जल्दी करवा दो ना, स्क्रीन पे आ गया. Volume is not coming. Can you increase the volume, please? नहीं आ रहा है ना, इसलिए बोलो.
Dr. Bagai, good evening. Yes, good evening, Dr. Bagai. My question to you, you believe now is the time for us to change the policy from a macro containment to a micro? Okay. Let me just try and fix that, Dr. Bagai. We are going to test that audio line with you again. But let me go across to Ajay Kumar because Chief Minister Kejriwal is of this view. Ajay Kumar, just how ready is Delhi to emerge from the lockdown?
फ्रेम हटा दे. any kind of emergencies. Identification of COVID hospitals, looking at various places where we need to make sure that the infrastructure is in place to look after any kind of emergency. And in a case like city like Delhi, the whole district becoming as an identification for any cases having COVID positive cases is very, very impossible to ever come out of it. So the first situation is you might have a residential complex with a few patients, but the whole district can come under the definition of a red zone or a orange zone. So we are saying that you need to identify those complexes if there is a building, do micro identification, and take preventive measures there, and let the economy, more than economy, let normal life come in, because let's imagine that this corona continues for a longer period of time till the vaccine is out, the infections remain, because the fact is, how long will you do the lockdown till there's not a single patient? So you need to make sure that within the system, we will have to live with a certain amount of corona presence, but ensuring that it doesn't become dangerous by creating good health infrastructure, essential healthcare, identification of people by regular testing, and getting everything on track. Because if you know that we collected only 350 crores last month, when we used to collect 3,500 crores, where is the money to pay the salaries? Where is the money to pay even the corona warriors the money? And where is the money to keep the patients in the hospitals? Where would be the money to feed all the people, to ensure that nobody goes hungry? So all this would also need that we get back on track. Otherwise, we'll be looking at something more serious. I will finish off with a very telling statistics. The major hospitals are seeing a patient's load of only 30%. So it's not that the people are the cancer or the diabetic emergencies or the cardiac emergencies have stopped. So there are people who are dying silently or suffering silently. So we need to look at this whole thing in a holistic way and work together to get economy, health, even schools. How do we find ways to get children? I know they are the most vulnerable section, so we need to be very careful on opening classes. But those are the things we need to do. So the government has to understand that we must get our economy back in place, along with looking after the corona situation.
Okay, let's get a quick reaction from Shazia Elmi as well. Shazia Elmi, do you believe the fact of the matter also is, Shazia, that the biggest of us cities, the metropolitans, almost every state capital is a red zone currently. And if we have to look at saving livelihoods and jobs in the economy, then some more relief may be required in these places.
Well, so first of all, I'd say that I think it's important every state chief minister has the freedom and to carve out their own strategy as based on the evidence they have vis-a-vis the containment of the contagion. Having said that, it is our Prime Minister who stressed the need for balancing Jaan and Jahan. So both saving lives and livelihoods are very important. We heard the Delhi Chief Minister talk about having some relaxation in the lockdown, but we also saw what happened in parts of Delhi and all those places where people were not queuing up, following social distancing in front of all the liquor shops, but we saw the mayhem that followed and how the shops had to be closed. So while I agree with this part that we have to live with the reality of coronavirus, and there has to be some sort of a balance. But I think it's equally important to ensure that social distancing is very important, which is why Arvind Kejriwal had to speak again today and say that it's really impossible to carry on like this if this is how people will continue to assemble and violate the norms of social distancing. So I think there cannot be a complete lockdown. I don't think there can be a complete let up of the lockdown. I think it has to be phased out. I think it has to be calibrated. I also think that the laws and the norms of social distancing have to be communicated in terms of clarity to with great frequency to everybody, to ensure that there are the benefit of the the lift that we think this will give the economy will come through. And we don't want a worse situation. We don't want the contagion to come back and hit us like it never did before in huge numbers, coming in the next phase post the let up. So I think there has to be a balance between the two, and the what we saw today is most undesirable in the when we saw. And I think liquor
Yes.
shops, I
Yes, no,
understand
I
there
agree
is
with you. Some amount of responsibility has. Yes, yes, yes. Finish your point. Yes.
yes, the responsibility of course lies with the people, but that message needs to be communicated. The guidelines have
Yeah.
to be very, very clear, and we have to make sure that doesn't happen as often as it did today itself.
Yes, I'm hoping that it gets sorted out in a couple of days. It's absolutely not, something that is required right now. This kind of social distancing violation, this kind of almost a law and order situation in many parts where the police then had to resort to lathi charge. And I'm not just talking about Delhi right now. We did have many such instances. Let me go across to Dr. Bagai. Dr. Bagai, hopefully you'll be able to hear me now. Let's talk a little bit more about the kind of policy we should have. Should we move away from this macro policy to, label an entire district as a specific zone and put a blanket policy and maybe have a more micro targeting approach?
Good evening, everyone. I think it's very important for all the viewers and everyone to understand that this has been the single most disrupting experience in humanity, in mankind, which we can ever experience ever in our lifetimes, and perhaps never again. This has actually shaken the very fundamental of our existence, our connectivity, our mobility. So let us not undermine or underestimate the infectiveness and the invasiveness of this deadly virus. Having said that, it's also very important that the socio-economic and geographic dynamics of India are very unique. It's perhaps the most densely populated metros which exist within our country, and it carries its own diverse problems. Going further, the lockdown was not to actually eradicate this virus. We cannot eradicate this virus. It runs its course. It has an upswing for about 4 to 8 weeks, and then a plateau, and then a downswing. So it was primarily to get our supply chains ready, our medical infrastructure ready. Most importantly, it was to send a very, very stringent message to the community at large that our way of social behavior has to change permanently forever. Now, this is no longer a government job alone, be it state or central. It is a society movement which we have to follow and inculcate right from our DNA, from our inception. Otherwise, whichever date we do exit from our lockdown, we may have the same problem. Now, this virus is going to stay for many months, maybe even till end of the year or beyond. Now, it's not only a question of developing herd immunity. What we really don't need is herd mentality. Now, what we experienced today was an aberration. I think it should never happen again. But it's very important that now we build gateways into the new world. We have to have a strict discipline. There's a very, very old saying that, well, we may have a stoic belief in our fundamentals and belief that we will do well, but that belief cannot be equated with discipline. Discipline has to be in every human being in India. Otherwise, this virus will hurt us again. It's also important that going forward, we have to look at economics, we have to look at livelihood, we have to look at jobs, and very important in the end, I must add, that India doesn't only have COVID as an infection. India has a host of other infections, be it tuberculosis, lower respiratory infections, pneumonias, diarrheas, infectious diseases, non-communicable diseases. We cannot take our pulse off that parameter because that is hurting us all year long. We are also going to get visited by malaria and dengue in the monsoon months in the coming few weeks. So we have to have a balanced approach. But I think going forward, has the lockdown fulfilled its purpose? It's done it wonderfully well. Has it given the message to society? Yes, it has. Have we got our infrastructure ready, government supplies ready? Yes. Is it time to move forward? Yes. But in a fine balance, we have to look at both ends of the spectrum. We can't tilt the fulcrum just one way. But going forward, we have to go rapidly into economic growth. We have to look at industry. We have to look at production. We have to look at a relook in healthcare. Because the way we've been functioning in healthcare may not be the absolute appropriate way going forward in the next 10 years. So I think it's a fine balance, but it's a time to move on. We have sensitized the community. In the end, just one last and the most important, paramount important point is the public health initiatives in terms of contact tracing, in terms of community surveillance, in terms of testing will continue for many weeks, many months henceforth. And this data is going to help us for any other impending infection which may come across our shores. So it's a continuous effort, but it's time to move on in a graded manner, maybe in a more micro-granular manner rather than a blanket ban.
Okay, let me also ask Dr. Maurya if he agrees. Dr. Maurya, do you agree that, now is the time to start opening up further? Maybe some of the states are being overcautious. And yes, there may be a rise in numbers in the initial days, but we are prepared for that in terms of the healthcare infrastructure.
Yeah, I think, as has been said by, all the panelists, the important thing is that, the lockdown was done with a purpose, and it was just one of the thing which is done along with so many measures which was taken. So yes, when we are opening up and it has to be done in a graded manner, I think the government might be looking at it and, because they can see from the larger, the picture and they can see from the above, what is happening at the moment. So yes, if the lockdown is being, open, it needs to be done in a graded manner. And, we should continue to have, as has been said, that same, that social distancing, our behavior has to be the same, hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene, using the mask. I think there needs to be continued. And obviously, with the infrastructure, is in a place at the moment, and there has been designated hospitals. So yes, as has been said earlier, there are so many emergencies also. We have diabetic emergency, heart emergencies. So those has also to be dealt with. The only thing is we have to be careful that, when we are opening it up, there should not be, very severe spike in the cases. That is what we have to monitor, at the time. And, in case if there is, that happens, then whether we have a better hospital infrastructure in place or not. So those has to be seen, from the macro level. And at the micro level, I think it has already been said, yes, we have to continue with the measures which we are doing at the moment. And yes, if, between in the Delhi, we have to see how many cases, coming from the particular areas, and so that we can further, identify those micro zones, as a red, yellow, or, red, orange, or a green zones as well. So that, some sort of, livelihood should go on. This has to be seen because, as said, Corona is going to be there for a longer period of time. So it has to be a delicate balance between both the two, when we are opening it up and we are taking care of pandemic.
So let me go back to Dr. Ajay Kumar. And Dr. Ajay Kumar, is there a lesson to be learned from what happened today? Like Shazia was mentioning, yes, largely the crowds were for liquor stores and not for essential or any other non-essential products. But is there a lesson to be learned there that, as we open up business and restart economic activity, we will have to do it in a very calibrated manner because people forget social distancing very, very quickly, clearly.
So, Tanvi, totally, what happened today was unfortunate, and I guess because the liquor shops opened after such a long time. Once this lockdown continues for a certain period of time, I'm sure the liquor issue and the other things, but we need to be careful. That's why we have even proposed odd and even market, and we are coming out with certain other ideas which we are going to share with the government of India. There are a lot of things which the state government can do. But like all of my colleagues on the panel said, it is critically important to ensure that we strike the right balance in terms of how we approach it. Because the fact is, if 15 people can squeeze into cement making truck, Indian citizens, people from our own, brothers and family members can get into a cement making machine, 15 of us. If children can die walking to reach their homes, if women can, walk 1,400 kilometers and collapse just before they reach, those are issues which involves a large percentage of our population. There are the small industry, the medium scale industries, the maximum employers. So we have to ensure that even to save the lives of the people, because if there are no jobs and if all those 10 crore jobs in the small scale and medium scale industry disappears, and that includes small hospitals, that includes even hospitals, clinics, and it includes shops, it includes small manufacturing units and all that. So we will have to find that right balance. So yes, it is a lesson. But I think the idea is to keep testing and contacting and educating and insisting. It cannot be done with a iron fist. It has to be done with continuous communication. But lessons learned, like the Chief Minister correctly said, that if this kind of things happen again in a liquor shop, then we'll have to look at, whether we need to close it to just send a message that it's not acceptable. It's happening across India. We need to be very careful. But I want to make sure that there is one thing which we need to also ensure on we need to work together to ensure that the money is, because the state government, I told you, I gave you a figure. We collected 350 crores and 3,500 crores was what we collect and spend in Delhi, and more than that, in fact. But to pay the salaries, to pay the teachers, to get economy running. And the majority of the economy is what feeds the country. India has got 400 million people who came out of the poverty line who are under the threat of going below the poverty line again. And correctly, like my colleagues, both the doctors on the panel also said, you have to live with dengue, you have to live with malaria. We'll also have to probably live with the corona till there is a vaccine. And we don't know when it will come. So social distancing, preventive and health infrastructure. Leave you with the last message that Delhi is much, much better off compared to all other states, and not because only we did it in the past 5 years, but over the period the health infrastructure is good. But in the state of UP or all other places, there are 34 districts which don't even have a single ICU bed. So those are things which we need to now start addressing. There are many parts of India. UP has just given you as an example. It would include Rajasthan, but Uttar Pradesh and Bihar have got, only no bed in 34 districts of Uttar Pradesh and no beds in, I think, 20 plus in Bihar. I don't know the exact number right now. I'm not able to recollect. And that could have been spent, this 40 days of lockdown, in creating those basic minimum infrastructure.
Yes, no, I completely agree with you. Every state should and hopefully has used this time. The lockdown was meant to help the states to prepare their healthcare infrastructure for when there is a rise in case. And hopefully we've done that enough if anything does happen, in the coming days. And it will. The infection's not going away. The virus isn't going away. The minute we lift the lockdown and some amount of movement begins, we will see that. And we have to be prepared for that. Shazia Almi, then should more power be given to the state governments? You did make that point. But fact of the matter is, right now, the state governments can only add on to the rules and restrictions. They can only make it stricter. They can't make it more lenient than what the center has set the bar for.
No, you just see every state has had a different response, and pretty much it remains a responsibility of the states in terms of, for instance, there is a central policy along with the help of the basic guidelines of ICMR. But apart from that, the states are doing what they have to. And one is not critical of Arvind Kejriwal only because he's from some other party. The fact of the matter is that all the state governments are doing their best. Now, see, there is a different model altogether in Sweden as compared to other Scandinavian countries and other parts of Europe. But not to say that Sweden is much worse, but the fact is they are looking at herd immunity. They are looking at having more let up and having far more freedom than anywhere else. They don't believe in a lockdown. My only point is in keeping with a central policy, which gives ample scope to the states to look at their own trials, to look at their own distribution of food grains mechanisms, and to look at their own infrastructure and abilities. Adding to that, one should not be too liberal, so to speak, so early in the day as to offset all the benefits that we have gotten from the lockdown so far, which was very well carried out, and also to ensure that we prepared and we have the medical preparedness to face any spike if it happens, if at all, and also to be ready to let go of the benefits of the financial relief that one gets from excise tax, for instance, in selling of liquor, because that itself is becoming a cause for worry. So while you're looking at, so this is a tightrope that every government will have to walk on, you see. So while you want to make sure that you get enough revenue, you also have to make sure that all that is not getting wasted in the treatment of the virus if it spikes up and has many more infected people in the city than otherwise. So that's a balance I'm talking about.
Okay, fair enough. Completely out of time. A big thank you to all of our panelists who have joined us. Suffice to say this, viewers, and I will make this point one more time. Yes, there has been some amount of relaxation that's come in for red zones, but largely the freedom of movement is still for orange zones and green zones, whereas the heart of our business, manufacturing, economic activity or consumption still comes from the red zones, the big cities, the metropolitan region, the capitals of our states, and which is why it's also important to start, breaking these red zones into different zones again and saying, all right, containment areas can continue with the strict restrictions, but maybe in other places we have to come up with some kind of a strategy to get the business going. And if a state is saying we are ready with the healthcare infrastructure, then perhaps gradually it is time to start lifting the lockdown, start lifting the restrictions. And even if there is some amount of spike, the state governments should by now be ready to tackle it. Completely out of time on that conversation, but before I wrap up, let's get you one ground report, viewers, because today was lockdown 3.0 day 1. And of all the things that were allowed was the opening and resuming of liquor shops. Unfortunately, in many parts, we saw a huge crowd, no social distancing, almost a law and order situation. But I want to bring you one report that we got from Chandigarh, a ground report where you can see large number of people standing patiently in a queue for their turn to buy some alcohol. Take a look.
In Chandigarh, that on the first day of lockdown, third, that we can see that liquor house, liquor, wine, beer that has opened in one of the posh areas in Chandigarh, and we can see this long queue here that people are standing in a long queue for getting the liquor in Chandigarh also. And we have seen that these people are since morning they are standing in the lines. We to them that sir, कब के लगे हुए लाइन में आप?
हाँ जी,
कब के लाइन में लगे हुए हैं?
घंटा हो गया।
ठीक है, तो 1 घंटा हो गया आपको लाइन में लगे हुए।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
तो ये कब से यहाँ पे रश चल रहा है? यहाँ पे
हम तो अभी आए घंटे पहले, उससे पहले से चल रहा है रश। तो
लिकर लेने आए हैं, कब के लाइन में लगे हैं? कोई प्रॉब्लम आई जो सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग की? तो
नहीं, प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं आई, पर अभी हो गया लगभग आधी घंटा से ज़्यादा हो गया।
The people who are standing here, they say that that they are standing in the queue for getting the liquor. So we also, I'll request my Vijay to show that even the police has been deployed here. So the police is making announcement from here that this shop is open till late evening. So they are saying, they are requesting the people not to rush in front of the shop because this is there is order by the Chandigarh administration that the shops will be open from 10 to 6 p.m. So they are also maintaining social distance so that the curfew rules should not be violated and the social distance should be maintained even while getting the liquor. So this is from sector 9 Chandigarh, where we can see this liquor house has just opened and there is a long queue which we have already shown. But now we will show you that how the announcement is being made by the police. Because of maintaining that social distance, there is a special announcement made by the police. the special announcement is made by police so that they can maintain that social distancing even while buying the things, whether it's a liquor or something else.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Urban Debate. Thank you for joining us.